How was my 2024? I'm so glad it's over. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and for today's video I've been tagged by the wonderful The Redheaded Witch Leah. So go check out her video, but as the title already suggests, this is a little bit of a 2024 recap and kind of the things that in my practice I'm looking forward to in 2025. So if I haven't already said Happy New Year to you, Happy New Year. I hope you had a wonderful, in German we say, slide into the new year. Mine was pretty uneventful. We have puppies, or so I call them, they're 8. And yeah, I just prefer staying in for this time of year. I'm not like a huge party person, but yeah, so these are going to, or this is going to be, you know, put into a 2-part video. We've got kind of 24 and then we've got 2025. So if you are only interested in one of the parts, just have a look at the timestamps down below. How was my 2024? I'm so glad it's over. I had a couple of life events, I guess you could say, that were unpleasant. I did have a miscarriage in June, and then my husband's father very suddenly and unexpectedly passed away as well in September. But you know, you have positive parts of 2024 as well. We did celebrate our wedding again with more family, because our actual wedding we did not have as much family around and friends weren't able to necessarily make it, so we kind of re-celebrated that in August. So it wasn't all sad, but it definitely was a year that was perhaps a little bit more on the difficult side, perhaps a little bit more on the personal growth, if you want to call it that. Personally, I do think we should, you know, be able to address and just say it as it is. Like, it was kind of shit. It was a lot of heartbreak, but you know. So the things in my practice, and it kind of obviously reflected that. Personally, 2024 was not a year that I was very strongly connected to my practice. Obviously it is, you know, it's in me, it's going to always be within me. It's just a belief system that I have. It's not going to be something that I can really put on hold. If you believe in it, you believe in it. If you don't, you don't. But obviously there's going to be parts of how active are we, how much are we, you know, doing active practice, and that was a little bit on the lower end for me just because of those life situations. So how did my practice grow? I started off the year with 2 things really strongly, and that carried me throughout the year in particular. One was, of course, the poison path practice deepened a lot for me, and then I also rediscovered my love for sewing. And so those are things that definitely were probably the biggest in my practice of that year. I was about to say this year. It's not this year anymore. But yeah, we continued with the poison path. If you are unsure what that is, I have a video on it linked. But yeah, the poison path, what does that actually mean? I basically really had a strong connection to specifically belladonna. Belladonna also showed up for me around the time of my miscarriage, but belladonna has definitely been one that I've been really connecting with, that I've also had experiences with that were humbling, to say the least. I do have a little bit of a chat about that on my Patreon if you're interested in that, but just to summarize it, essentially working with belladonna or working with nightshades, you need a massive amount of respect, which I did have. I just did not expect that I would, or my body would show up quite as sensitive as it did towards belladonna, because, or all of the nightshades, just because it is something that I had not read. And so I think that's one of the things that my practice with this specific, you know, realm of the poison path, it went from theoretical knowledge to practical knowledge much more, which I, you know, being here, having been able to sow these plants and like plant these plants, and they became massive, especially the belladonna, massive, to a point where she overtook the garden a little bit. You know, good for her, good for her. But I had a very interesting experience, a spiritual experience, just by touching her when she had wet leaves. which I essentially had a trip. And I had a similar trip with datura as well, again, just because I took out the slightly moist seeds out of the, what's it called? You know, the fruit, I guess you could call it. Don't eat it, don't ever eat it. But I took out the seeds of the datura plant, and I had like a 2-hour-long trip. And luckily, because I had enough theoretical knowledge, research knowledge, I knew I'd be fine. I was monitoring all of my symptoms, I was writing down all of my symptoms, but that was definitely something that was unexpected, because I hadn't really read that you could have these experiences just by having like physical contact. But I mean, of course your hands are, you know, like very receptive, and you know, if there is topical substances like alkaloids, they are able to penetrate and able to, you know, cause certain symptoms that are of course much more subtle than if you, for example, ingested any part of the plant. And then to a degree that became almost a tiny bit frustrating, because I, for example, also have an angel's trumpets, Brooke Manzia, and she was standing outside, you know, just living her best life, and she dropped a couple of brown leaves, as most plants do, and they were already brown and they were on the floor, and I picked them up to just, you know, dispose of them. That alone caused me to have the very mildest 2-minute long it happened and it was immediately gone symptoms. So I seem to just be very receptive to the alkaloids, to the substances present in all of these nightshade plants. So that was definitely something that was very interesting for me personally, and I feel like obviously there's going to be so much, I could make an entire video about it, but there was just a lot of, yeah, like spiritual experiences surrounding that, deepening my relationship with these plant spirits. Another one then that I've already mentioned is sewing. So I never really like seriously was sewing. I did have a sewing machine when I was like 13 or 12, 13 I think it was, but I never took a course or anything like that. And like I sewed a couple of things and then I was just like, I'm over it. I did always want to be a seamstress when I was a child, and then also I have 2 ancestors, female ancestors, that I like to connect with a lot. One was a seamstress and then also a midwife. The other one was a midwife, not that far back. So these are definitely ancestors that I feel like have kind of come through with me this year especially. But in terms of sewing, I picked up sewing again. I am really taking it quite seriously, and yeah, it was really healing for me. I think it became meditative for me. I would be able to just really sit down. So I feel like I heard music. I'm not sure if you can hear that on the camera. And yeah, just sewing became a really big part of my practice. It became a big part for me to reconnect and reconnect to myself as well, especially after the traumatic experience. You hear that, don't you? Yeah. That's when you live in the countryside on a horse farm or a farm with horses and different animals. Oh well. Yeah, and then honestly, to be honest with you, as for my practice, I've just kind of deepened my relationship with the local spirits and with local folklore much more. I've been just reading about it in a more theoretical way. And yeah, honestly, to be honest with you, due to, I think, the miscarriage, just because of kind of the traumatic experiences that I had, I really was just not in the headspace. I didn't really have the spoons for it, which I think is fine. We all go through, you know, phases in our life, and you can't constantly be in the sowing and reaping phase. Sometimes you have to be in the slumber phase. So that's kind of my 2024 in my practice. So what would I like to learn in my practice going forward with 2025? I'm definitely returning to my plants. It is still winter, it is snowy outside, and in Germany we have the Eisheiligen, which are like the ice holies, the holy ice saints or spirits. It's not really specified if they're saints, but I think the names are saint names. They basically are, if you follow the like farmer's almanac type thing, they are very prominent down here, especially in Bavaria, and we have 4, and the last one is Ice Saint Sophia, or called Sophia, and I think it is the 15th of May, so I still have a really long time to go before I am able to really have any plants outside, because essentially these ice saints are what you will wait for to be able to finally put all your plants outside, because otherwise these ice saints will freeze. So they're like cold spurts that come through and are just like not good for your harvests and are not good for your plants. So they always say just to wait those off, and then you can start planting. And you know, obviously I'm going to have seedlings that I'll have indoors already, so by the time that I am able to have everything in the garden, that they are ready to go. I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited for that, you know, seasonal shift, but I also want to like be in the season that we are right now, which is of course winter, which is of course, you know, hibernation, sleep, rest, recovering, recuperating, gathering strength for the next year. Continuing of course with my sewing, I'd like to incorporate my plants and sewing together with, for example, charms, traditional charms, belladonna for example being one, used for a couple of different things, to be honest with you. Protection, victory in war, and also love. So that's an interesting one that I'd like to kind of get into even deeper, you know, really deepen that. And then I'd like to try working more with planets a little bit. I know that Leah has mentioned this as well in her video. She's working kind of with Mercury, and I'd like to take inspiration from that and also try working with both Mercury and the moon. I feel like are the ones that I'm kind of drawn to. And so that is going to be something that is relatively new for me. I've not really worked specifically with the planets in such a way where I would petition to the spirit of that planet. It's always just been more so that I would look at, for example, the moon phase or which planet is currently in transit for whatever spell I'm doing or spell working practice. So that's quite interesting. Also, something that I really enjoy and have always enjoyed is palmistry. So my grandmother taught me palmistry when I was already really young, and it's something that I still really enjoy and really continue to deepen. I just find that a really fascinating part of divination, and it is something that I've also been reading about a little bit here or there, which was really fascinating because I have this book. It's a German book, and I'll link it below, and it is written centuries ago. I think potentially the 14th century, and what was so fascinating is that it actually included the exact type of things that my grandmother taught me about palmistry. And so it was just very confirmative. It was very like, that was really cool to see, you know? And I'd like to get more involved with the community as well. So obviously the local community here is very farmer heavy. I'd like to kind of see more herbalism within the community. So I'd love to, they do like herbalism walks down here where essentially like someone who's very educated and like knowledgeable about herbs, the local herbs and plants and all that stuff, will offer these walks, and then like a group of people can like join that, and then you kind of just go like through the forest or through like the fields, and I'm like, oh, that plant and that plant. I'd want to do that, and I just feel like getting involved with the community is so important. So that's what I would love to do and get into more. Yeah. And so that is kind of it for me and for this video already, to be honest. Okay, so the people that I'd like to tag are Olivia, the Witch of Wonderlust. I'm going to tag Bente, the Norse Witch, and I'm also gonna be tagging Bex, the Witch's Cookery. So yeah, I'd love to see your responses. I love response videos or like just tags. I find them so fun. And yeah, let me know if you obviously want to participate. Please do, please feel free. I tag all of you. So if you see this and you're like, oh, I want to do a video like that, please do. Please, if you do tag me. I love watching them. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this very rambly chit-chatty video. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support me and my channel, I do have some beautiful crystals. Hold on, my husband's gonna be mad at me if I don't pull them up. If you want to support me and my channel, I do have a really wonderful witchy shop with beautiful crystals, for example, and a couple of witchy items that I make myself. You'll also be seeing some of those planned charms that I was talking about this year, so go check that out. I also, of course, have my Patreon, which is the best way to support me as well, to support this channel. You get, you know, some extra content, you get some rambly thoughts with a tier as low as $1. So that would mean a lot to me. And then of course all of my socials are linked below. And yeah, if you have any comments or any questions, feel free to leave them down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I keep forgetting to say that in all my videos. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful year, and may you walk with your gods. Bye!